clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 2431, offered by Mr. Gutierrez. Add at the end of the bill the following.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read, and the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes on his amendment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would allow U.S. citizens who are detained by ICE, CBP, or by a local police or sheriff's department on suspicion of being an immigrant in the U.S. illegally to sue the U.S. government or the state or local authority who took action on behalf of the federal government. My interest in this stems from the fact that I'm Puerto Rican, born in the United States, to parents who were born in Puerto Rico, who were also born in the United States. So I can go all the way to back my grandfather, citizen, my parents citizen, I'm a citizen, my children a citizen. But they never stopped anyone from telling my parents or telling me that I should just go back to Mexico. It's never stopped anyone. Just yesterday, Mr. Chairman, on Twitter, Christy, who describes herself as a mother and grandmother from California, told me, quote, "Leave our country, go back to Mexico where you belong." So I can tell you from personal experience that a lot of the anti-Mexican comments that are thrown around these days are really a shorthand for ways of saying Latino. When Donald Trump descended the golden escalators at Trump Tower and said in announcing his presidential campaign that Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers, and regardless of whatever subgroup of Latinos he may have meant to denigrate and slander, what Latinos heard was aimed at not just the quote-unquote Mexicans, but all Latinos in the United States of America. Any Latino, or frankly, any person of color in this country can tell you that racial profiling is prevalent in our country, and furthermore, that racial profiling is often inaccurate. Americans are just not very good at determining someone else's ethnicity. Ask 3 people what race Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, and you'll get 3 different answers. And he said it when he announced his bid for the White House with his running mate, Tom Hanks, on Saturday Night Live the other day. It's even harder to look at someone and determine the complicated legal matter of whether someone is in full or complete compliance with immigration law. If all Latinos are Mexican and all Mexicans are murderers, rapists, killers, and drug dealers, it can get pretty harsh for the Latino community in the United States of America. Some Republican members of the House of Representatives say that you can tell who is undocumented. This is an actual quote, Mr. Chairman. Republican members of the House have said they can tell who's undocumented by looking at someone's shoes. As one of our Republican colleagues argued on national TV, saying shoes were sufficient to identify immigrants and specifically their immigration status, that they were here illegally in this country. Now, racial profiling is a problem for several reasons, including that Americans do it a lot, and Americans don't do it very well. But most importantly, it's just bad law enforcement. Racial profiling does not yield the law enforcement results that we need our law enforcement to achieve in order to keep our schools, our neighborhoods, and our country safe. We tend to waste resources looking at classes of people who are not significant threats and who do not focus enough our resources on people who pose actual significant threat. So as lawmaker, our legislation should be to disincentivize racial profiling whenever possible, and my amendment seeks to do that. We all saw the viral video over the weekend of a transit cop in Minnesota asking a writer for his papers, asking him if he was in the country illegally or not. It was captured on tape by a bystander who had the good sense to see what was happening, take out his phone, record the incident, even challenge the police officer of whether it was right or his response to question a subway rider about his or her immigration status. And frankly, based on the clip I saw, the police officer backed off real quickly. But that was not the case for Eduardo Caraballo, who was arrested for petty crime and sent to Cook County Jail in Chicago, where he would have been booked and released. But the sheriff's office received a detainer request on Caraballo as a suspected undocumented immigrant and didn't release him and kept him in jail for several days based on the detainer. As it turns out, Mr. Caraballo is Puerto Rican. Always has been, always will be. Was an American citizen, his parents were American citizens. Judging from his rap sheet, he was no saint, but he was an American citizen and still is. My office called the Cook County Sheriff's Department and told them they did not have to honor the detainer on any other Puerto Rican, and we worked with them to understand that in the absence of a warrant issued by a judge, the Sheriff's Department did not have to hold anyone for a federal government on an ICE detainer, which is the genesis of this updated and effective policy we have in Cook County. But it's not just Puerto Ricans who are incarcerated on suspicion of being here illegally. Hector Veloz is a U.S. citizen and Vietnam veteran who was held for 13 months in detention so he could prove from behind bars his citizenship. I'm told there are a lot of other cases of people detained, spending days in jail like Mr. Caraballo, a few months in jail like Mr. Veloz. I want our laws to create a severe financial disincentive to that happening again, and again. So I would like to be clear that if our Department of Homeland Security wants people held and wants private companies and state and local governments to do that holding, and frankly, that has a lot to do with failed and demonstrably ineffective practices of racial profiling, that there will be consequences, is what I want U.S. citizens that are held illegally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Recognize